Everyone, there we are. Good morning, everybody. We've got quite a few joining the call this morning, so I'll give it a few minutes just for people to cross from the lobby. Hopefully people will be joining us as we start this call. Thanks again for joining us this morning for the briefing event for the Circular Economy in the Public Sector Challenge. I'll just present the slides. Hopefully people will still manage to get in as we go along. There we are. So hopefully you can all see the slides up on the screen. If I go to the first slide, so the times for this call from 10 till 12, but we'll probably finish before that, depending on the number of questions that we had. As I said, there's quite a few people joining us this morning, so we'll allow a few minutes at the beginning to allow everybody to join. And then I'll run through what the process is for today. And then hopefully we'll start to hear from the presenters. But yeah, I'll allow a little bit more time for people just to join the call as we get started. I'll just give it a few minutes. Whilst we're waiting for people to join, I'll just run through, as you probably have seen, that this event is being recorded. Cameras and microphones have been disabled for all attendees, but we have enabled a Q&A section on this call. So please do pop any questions that you have into that Q&A session. We'll be dealing with the questions at the end of the presentation, so we'll run through some brief presentations first and then allow plenty of time for Q&A at the end. The chat function should be disabled, so hopefully it will just be the Q&A function that you will see to be able to access this call. I'm just going to check the lobby 1 second just to make sure everybody has managed to get in. I know there's a few more joining us. Said hopefully quite a lot of interest for this call, which is great to see. We've got quite a few people signed up to this one this morning, but hopefully majority of people will have joined us and we'll be able to get going relatively quickly. More people in. Apologies for the bit of a delay. There's quite a few people coming in. So what I'll do is I will turn off the lobby and let everybody in. Hopefully that will work and then people can just join us when they're ready. Fab. Well, hopefully that's the majority of people who've signed up for this call with us today. So I'll start going through some information about the SBRI Centre of Excellence, and then I'll be running through what the agenda is for today, and then I'll be handing over to the other presenters. So let me just go on to the next slide. So good morning. I should probably start with that. My name's Kate Williams and I'm a project manager at the SBRI Centre of Excellence. So the SBRI Centre of Excellence, we're hosted by Betsy Cadwallader Health Board, but we're funded by Welsh Government. Primarily in the past, we've been set up to support health-related challenges across the whole of Wales, but we are expanding our remit to deliver connected, I suppose is the best way of putting it, connected challenges in other areas within the public sector, recognising the appetite for challenge-led delivery, but also recognising the need for capacity to support that as well. So as a centre, we work with public sector organisations to identify their key challenges, their unmet needs, and then we work with those public sector organisations to develop challenges and then put those challenges out to market for innovative suppliers such as yourself to put forward your solutions and to work with those public sector organisations to develop those solutions and hopefully accelerate those solutions moving to market. It's very much, as I said, collaborative in nature. So you're working with the public sector organisation, not just for, and hopefully what that means is that we have much better solutions coming to market that very much meet those needs that have been identified by the public sector. We also work with funding bodies to access funding to support these challenges, and we also deliver wraparound support. So we deliver the whole project management of challenges, but also we support other organisations to deliver challenges themselves. So really helping to create that capability and increase capacity in challenge-led innovation. Also, we do provide recognised training such as Print2. So this is the team. We've recently expanded. So we've got a new deputy head of challenge-led innovation, and I recently joined the team to support challenge areas outside of health. And we've also recently reached our 5-year anniversary. So we've been running for 5 years now as a centre. So just to highlight another challenge that we have live at the moment, we actually launched on the same day as the Circular Economy Challenge, and that is the ammonia challenge. So what that's looking to do is to support challenges that support solutions, that can evidence a reduction in ammonia emissions, in particular in the cattle sector. So that challenge opened on the same day, and that will close on the 5th of January. As with this challenge, it's looking to support phase 2 demonstrator or phase 3 scale and spread projects. Let's move on to the next slide. So this is the agenda for today. You'll be pleased to see it's quite short and sweet. So we'll be moving on after I've finished kind of running through this. We'll be moving on to Tom Doyle from Innovate UK. After that, we'll be hearing from Welsh Government Innovation colleagues, so Greg Green, and he's also joined by Steve Parks as well today. Then it'll be back to me. I'll run through some of the wider challenge details. And then hopefully, I haven't seen Josh on the call as yet, but I'll keep an eye out for him, who will run through the Simply Do platform. Just if you're not familiar with the portal that we use for administering our challenges, we can run through that, make sure that you're familiar with the process before you start to work on your application. And then that will leave hopefully plenty of time for Q&As at the end. As I said, we won't be taking questions during the presentations. We'll get through all those first. But if you can start to pop your questions in there, then we can start to kind of collate them and get them ready to be answered at the end of this call. You'd be glad to hear that's it from me from now. So I'm going to hand over to Tom Doyle from Innovate UK. Many thanks for joining us this morning. Thank you.
Hi all, I'm Tom Doyle. As Kate said, I work in the Government Leaders team at Innovate UK. So we focus on the government's use of procurement and regulations and standards to support the research and innovation ecosystem. I'm just going to give you a bit of background on SBRI in general and talk through a few of its key features. Next slide, please. So SBRI was developed in the early 2000s by the European Commission as a way to fund R&D that more equally shared the benefits and risks between funders and successful applicants, and that wasn't a subsidy, therefore less distortive to the market than a grant-based approach. Pre-commercial procurement was implemented in the UK as SBRI, and Innovate UK acts as the custodians of the mechanism, supporting other public sectors organisations to use it, as well as collecting data on its use across the UK on behalf of central government. It's worth also noting that SBRI is mentioned specifically in the UK Science and Technology Framework, along with the Cabinet Office commitment to expand its use across the public sector. Next slide, please. So since that implementation in the UK, there's been well over £1.5 billion put through SBRI competitions. There was an independent evaluation published last year that's available on the UKRI website. You should be able to search for it easily on the internet. There's just to pick out a couple of things in there. There were some quantified benefits to successful applicants between 1.5 and 4 times the value of the public sector investment, and projected future savings of around 1.5 billion as a result of SBRIs which have taken place in the healthcare sector alone. Next slide, please. So SBRI is pre-commercial procurement. It wouldn't be used where a commercially available solution already exists. It's used to procure R&D services to develop solutions to government challenges, either operational or policy challenges. and focus on specific outcome-driven solutions. So it's challenge-led innovation. It requires a lead customer or the knowledge, that there would be a market for this if the solution were to exist. The funder isn't always the end customer. So, for example, when Innovate UK use this as a funding mechanism, we won't be the end customer. But where, again, just as an example, the MOD use this as a funding mechanism, they are often the end customer as well as the funder of the SBRI. And running an SBRI in no way commits the funding organisation to purchasing solutions if the ideal solution were developed through the process, although that's obviously what we want to see. In the longer term, that's how we get impact from these R&D investments. But it is important to recognise that purchasing an end user solution is a stage on and separate from the SBRI itself. Also, the challenges and outcomes need to be relatively well defined to the extent that applicants are clear what they're aiming for. The mechanism is very flexible as to the granularity of challenge, though. SBRI's focus on usable solutions often helps coalesce and get buy-in from the wider systems thinking, end users, for example, and Kate's already referenced how, this is very collaborative with those public sector end users. You'll also note that an acronymed SBRI is the Small Business Research Initiative. That's a bit misleading at the moment and is something we're working on. But if you're listening from an organisation that isn't a small business, don't panic. All organisation sizes and types are eligible. So I'll briefly go over some of the key features of SBRI. As mentioned earlier, I think they are awarded as contracts, not grants. So unlike grants, they're 100% funded rather than requiring match funding. And as you'd expect for any contract, payments are made on completion of milestones, which are bespoke and agreed before starting each project. And those payments can be reasonably reduced, delayed, or withheld if milestones are not met. Costs quoted should reflect fair market value and be actual costs, and not include profit. The contract is with a single organisation, the lead applicant. They may choose to subcontract where there's justification for doing so. The lead applicant should do the majority of their work, and they also remain accountable for delivering on the contract. And any arrangements with subcontractors are the responsibility of the lead applicant. I'll just say a bit about the IP as well, because it is slightly different to grants in that while IP still all rests with the supplier, like grants, there are some usage rights for foreground IP granted to the funder. They're all set out in the draft contract. They only relate to foreground IP, so that's IP generated through this project specifically. Nothing affects background IP or IP generated beyond this project, for example. These clauses are as developed by the European Commission, although we've done some work recently to make the wording a little bit clearer. They were designed to share the benefits and risks, so that this is not a subsidy. The clause essentially ensures that the funder doesn't pay royalties for a product or service they may wish to procure in the future, which they funded 100% of the development costs for. Again, this only covers IP developed during the project, and any future procurement of a solution were to take place by the funder, we'd expect to see relevant costs in there for background IP, along with operational costs and profit and things like that. It is only focused on the foreground IP. And organisations are very much encouraged to plan to exploit that IP, further beyond the funding organisation of this particular project. As I covered earlier, it is a procurement for a contract by public sector, so it's open to any size and type of organisation, although they must all demonstrate a route to market. Next slide, please. And just very briefly to finish off, so the yellow pre-commercial procurement section here is what a textbook SBRI sort of would look like. The mechanism is very flexible, so it can start or end anywhere along that TRL 2 to 8 spectrum, generally with a greater number of smaller projects at earlier stages of development through to a smaller number of larger projects at later stages of development. This is an example only, and I think I'll leave it there for other colleagues to take you through this competition in more detail.
Thank you very much, Tom. And now we're going to move on to Greg Green and Steve Parks from Welsh Government Innovation. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, everyone. Yeah, my name is Greg Green, and I'm joined by colleague Steve Parks. So I work within the innovation team within Welsh Government, and it's trying to mirror that's slightly what Tom does. It's trying to leverage SBRI and embed it in across all the different policy areas of Welsh Government, and work with people like the Centre of Excellence in Kate and getting projects off the ground. And Steve is actually on the day-to-day management and coordination of the programs as well. Next slide, please. So if you're following Wales, there's the Wales Innovation Strategy was launched last month, October. Yeah. So, and it's really looking at what innovation is. Innovation is about developing new ideas into products and services. It can mean inventing new things or making all things work better. So, and the innovation aims, as from a Welsh Government perspective, is making things better for people, including everyone. And it could be flexible and have people working together in collaborations. Next slide, please. So again, if you're looking into, if you're familiar with the Welsh Government setup, we're one of the first countries in the world that actually has all our policy objectives must align to the well-being of future generations. So all the policy actions that we deliver must fall in line with a number of those 7 coloured boxes on the top. So it's prosperous, resilient, healthier, more equal, cohesive communities, vibrant culture and thriving Welsh language, and globally responsible. So with the innovation team now and our innovation strategy and our innovation action plan, we're looking to work across all the different departments within Welsh Government and make sure that if they're doing something in the innovation space, it aligns to those strategies. So we do that through understanding what Wales have. So we're looking at the benchmarking through national indicators, data analysis, milestones, future trends, and the measurement of innovation. And then we do that through effective collaboration with internal, I say cross-working through different policy areas, but also external as well. So with the public sector, the private sector, the third sector, academia, and the various community groups that we have. So in terms of delivery, we have, in trying to install the innovation culture, flexible R&D funding. We actually have Welsh Government actually has its own program of innovation support and funding. We're looking then to build on capability and capacity. So we have a number of innovation assets, which we're looking to increase in scale. And then we do it through making sure that all the innovation community are aware of the opportunities coming out of people like Innovate UK, MOD, DASA, etc. And then if people want to work collaboratively, we can provide some advice and support for effective collaboration. And again, ultimately, we need to measure impact as well. So 5 ways of working. So sustainable development principles, again, just repetition of collaboration, integration, involvement, taking a long-term view and preventing things in order for a better outcome. So things, like today's challenge around reuse, recycle, it's preventing things going into single-use sort of areas, which is probably not best for the environment. So as I mentioned, we enable change through policy and strategy, so the well-being of future generations, our program for government commitments, and the recently launched innovation strategy. Next slide, please. So the innovation missions that you've got 2 sort of pizza pies there. And if you look at around about the 3 o'clock, protect natural environment, renewable energy, decarbonisation home around about 4 or 5 o'clock. So these are, the today's challenge fits into the climate and nature, but also economy as well. So in terms of the public procurement, how we go about using a procurement pound to help drive the innovation activity as well. Next slide, please. So just in terms of the priorities that underpin our investment decisions, digital transformation, net zero and decarbonisation, agri-tech, food, rural economy, creative industries and media, population health and biotech, and materials and manufacturing. Okay, next slide, please. Just to recap on, we work very closely with Innovate UK, so we set up an MOU in April of this year, and that was followed by a collaboration plan, which was launched in October. And there's 3 themes that we work closely with Innovate UK as a partner: connecting support, stimulating innovation, and the better use of data for more of a fair and prosperous Wales. So we published our Welsh Government Cross-Department Innovation Plan as well in October, and we've launched our flexible funding offer for businesses based in Wales. Thanks, Kate. If you just build a slide. So just a few examples of the progress we've made. Next slide, please. I'll hand over to Steve now. He'll just run through the approach that Welsh Government has taken in terms of procurement and innovation. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. Morning, everybody. I'm Steve Parks, the Challenge-led Innovation Projects Manager for Welsh Government, as Greg explained earlier. So looking at the Procurement Reform Bill, that looks to embed three key principles. Firstly, to create a simple and flexible commercial system that can better meet our country's needs whilst remaining compliant. Open up public procurement opportunities to new entrants such as small businesses, social enterprises, so that they can compete for and win more public contracts, and embed transparency throughout the commercial life cycle so that the spending of taxpayers' money can be scrutinised properly. SBRI plays a role in supporting the procurement of innovation by enabling the public sector to engage effectively with industry during the early stages of development. We use challenges, as we've said, to take the right approach to problem solving, to start with defining the challenge that's faced without getting straight into the specific of the solutions. This then enables us to explore new ideas through a phased approach that minimises the risks and helps identify the most promising projects to take forward. Next slide, please, Kate. So this is where we show off a little bit. The SBRI approach has worked well for us, and we've shared what we do with different administrations internationally, so we can justifiably claim to be world leaders in the field. We've advised the UK government on their GovTech Catalyst programme, which makes use of the SBRI approach. The Cardiff Capital region have used the model effectively, recently running a challenge looking at innovative solutions for sustainable production and supply of food. We've invested in establishing that SBRI Centre of Excellence hosted by Betsy Cadwaladr University Health Board, and our approach has been widely recognised, particularly for our work on the rapid sanitising of ambulances challenge during the COVID crisis, and the childhood obesity affordable nutritious food challenge, which shows that the well-being of future generations is something that's at the heart of everything we look to do. So our belief in SBRI is founded on what we've seen rather than in some blind faith. If you could move on to the next slide, Kate. We'll just have a quick look at one or two examples of the type of challenges that we have supported, just to give you a feel of how we're operating in the space. So the Welsh Government supported Rhondda Cynnon Taff Council's mattress recycling scheme through the SBRI mechanism. So the authority had acquired some machinery to help break down mattresses ready for recycling. So we were looking at plans to make their recycling process as effective and efficient as possible. So they investigated the feasibility of some different actions there. The council went on to use waste heat from an existing food waste treatment plant to heat water to sterilise the mattress textiles ready for recycling. That was a benefit of that particular endeavour. And if we can have a look at the last slide. And more recently, we supported a challenge to find recycling treatment solutions for absorbent hygiene products. Welsh local authorities had been collecting domestic AHP waste, and Welsh Water had also been exploring opportunities to recycle this waste. So by coming together to solve the problem, the project aimed to build a sustainable all-Wales treatment and recycling solution. So the Clean Green Future Partnership, with support from SBRI, provided funding for businesses from different parts of the world to develop innovative ideas for absorbent products recycling. A lot of work went into it, and something I was told when I was younger, because I'm a simple mid Wales boy, was that the streets of London were paved with gold. But there's a stretch of the A487 between Cardigan and Aberystwyth that was given a new surface consisting of more than 100,000 used nappies. So I'm not sure if that's the right note to end on, but it's the one I've chosen. So back to you, Kate. Thanks very much.
Brilliant, thank you both. So I hope you get to the challenge screen. So I'm just going to run you through some of the broader context of this challenge and hopefully some of the key details in terms of funding and challenge timelines as well. So this briefing event is for the Circular Economy in the Public Sector SBRI Challenge. And through this challenge, what we're looking to support is the delivery of sustainable innovations that will address the use of single-use products in the public sector, supporting increased resilience in Welsh supply chain. So hopefully really closing that circular loop within Wales, encouraging green growth and importantly, supporting population wellbeing across Wales. So successful applicants and their public sector collaborator will be expected to deliver demonstration and or scale and spread innovative projects. So really kind of testing on the ground what their solutions are and starting to really kind of evidence and articulate what those benefits will be. So that'll be really looking throughout those projects to evidence the potential benefits and in particular cost effectiveness and sustainability of their solutions. So a bit of background and challenge context. So Welsh Government set the ambition for public sector in Wales to be net zero by 2030. Public sector within Wales is a significant procurer of goods and services across Wales. So there's really a key role for the public sector to take in achieving those widespread decarbonisation targets. And really, without looking at the circular economy approach, that's going to be something that we're going to really struggle to do. You'll probably all have seen that there was a recent introduction of the Environmental Protection Single-Use Plastic Products Act, which recognises the scale of the climate and economical emergencies, as well as recognising the actions we as individuals are taking across Wales to reduce our reliance on single-use plastics, changing our habits and hopefully making products and services that are more sustainable. However, this Act doesn't cover a vast array of single-use products that are actually in use across the public sector, but they still need to be addressed. So we still need to be considering that what we do as a public sector is kind of meeting those overall aims of the Environmental Protection Act, and that we're working towards reducing our impact on the environment. So it's really critical that public sector in Wales works with the supply chains to identify those cost-effective, innovative solutions that can reduce those emissions and enable that long-term value creation. So going back to Greg's earlier points about linking into the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act, this is very much about what can we do now to improve the outcomes for future generations. So in terms of the scope of this challenge, excuse me, what we're looking to identify and support, as I said earlier, is a combination of both phase 2 and phase 3 collaborative projects. So what I mean by that, so the demonstrator prototyping, so really testing on the ground, real world use of those solutions. And if you've already demonstrated your solutions in some areas, we can also consider phase 3, which is kind of that scale and spread. Where else can you test and try this and demonstrate that it can have the benefits that you've started seeing in your demonstrator work? And how can you test this with different demographics, different environments, different supply chains to provide that evidence that it's really kind of applicable across sectors and that it's going to have that long-term benefits that you hope to achieve. So the key focus within this opportunity, there's kind of two key themes to it. So designing out waste, so reimagining products that are used in the public sector so that they're designed from the outset to enable that more effective reuse, minimise waste and reduce those whole life costs. So reducing the impact on the environment as well as making sure that they're affordable solutions for the future. The other strand to this challenge is about looking at retaining value for reuse. So helping us to kind of reimagine how we enable current waste to be repurposed, extracting the value and enabling them to be reused within Wales to reduce potentially the use of virgin materials and potentially support revenue generations for the public sector. And so, as I said earlier, it's really about kind of focusing on how can we really demonstrate that circular economy loop within Wales. Let's move to the next slide. So in terms of the funding available, we've got a budget secured of up to £1 million to support a broad portfolio of projects. So we're looking for a real mix of things to support. That budget will be dependent on the scale and the quality of the submissions that we see. But as a kind of a broad outline, we are seeking to support a range of different projects, which is why we've kind of seen quite a broad kind of funding window for this, because we're really looking to support, everything from the kind of small scale, more rapid delivery of projects. So looking potentially around the £50,000 mark for quite small scale, rapid projects, all the way up to, say, large scale demonstrators, approximately £400,000. So it's kind of a real flexible opportunity, which will hopefully enable us to kind of really consider a whole mix of different solutions and different delivery models. So the key thing to note on that, whilst the budget is quite broad and flexible, you will really need to demonstrate within your application how your solution, how your project application offers value for money. So if you do go for higher cost as part of your project, you will really need to demonstrate why that's needed, what resources are required to deliver this project, what's the scale of this project, and why does that justify a larger scale budget. So please do concentrate on that within your applications. Another key thing to note with this challenge is kind of like the flexibility in terms of the funding, so that it'll allow us to support the innovation solution provider and to actually hopefully resource the requirements within the Welsh public sector to actually really work collaboratively with these solutions. So potentially funding their time as well to work with these innovative solution providers, so that we're really understanding the whole systems, understanding how your solutions work in practice, and really taking that collaborative approach. So potentially you'll be looking to include your public sector collaborator as subcontractor costs based on how much time each organisation will be participating within this challenge. So ideally, within that challenge application, we'll be looking for clear roles to be stated, ideally with named individuals, but we would like to see at a minimum the organisations that you intend to work with across the public sector, to make sure that you are kind of taking that collaborative and end user informed approach to your projects. So what are some of the key aspects of this challenge? So the key focus will be on demonstrating sustainability and affordability. So doing better is the ideal thing, but doing better affordably is going to be key. So it can't just be about being cash neutral. The current financial climate that we face, we have to make hard choices. So we've got to be making sure that we're evidencing that we're achieving that sustainability for the environment, but also that sustainability for services as well. So looking at the financial affordability of your solutions and doing that in collaboration with your public sector collaborator is really going to be a key part of your project delivery. Second point, reiterating what I've said, it must be collaborative in nature. So you must be working with the intended users of your solutions. And also what we've put within this application is ideally we'd like you to be working with Welsh businesses as well, so that we're really starting to kind of create those circular economy supply chains within Wales, and also considering where the waste can be reused, hopefully by Welsh businesses as well. So this challenge seeks to test emerging near-to-market innovations via real-world trials. So what we're not looking to support is early feasibility. We're looking for far more advanced solutions than that. So we're not just looking for a feasibility report, we're looking for that on-the-ground demonstration to prove the benefits. And as part of that, we'll be expecting a very rigorous evaluation to be undertaken as part of your project delivery, so you're really able to articulate and evidence the potential benefits and the potential for scale up across Wales, because what we're hoping to see is solutions that can be applied across the whole of Wales to have that circular economy benefits on a large scale. So successful projects must demonstrate a clear plan for commercialisation, and that's something we'll be looking for you to develop as you're delivering your project. And that route to market is key in terms of having affordable solutions that are closer to market, hopefully at the end of this challenge. So key thing to note here is actually we've had discussions recently and we've listened to some of the feedback about the timelines being a bit challenging, especially kind of taking into account that we're really looking for collaborative projects. So based on that feedback, we've actually agreed to change the closing date. So the closing date is being moved from the beginning of December to the beginning of January 2024. You won't see that on Simply Do yet because I haven't told them, but hopefully we'll have that updated on there soon. This then impacts on the rest of the timescales, but hopefully not too detrimental. So we've kind of pushed back the project start just by a month, but the actual delivery window hasn't changed. You know, it's still the kind of period we set out in the original brief that was sent out. But we do recognise that it's important to allow the time for you to forge those collaborative relationships and to be able to be clear on people's participation within that. So that's just about it for me. Another couple of reminders in terms of if you have got questions, please do pop them in the Q&A section and we can go through those at the end. In Tom's presentation, he mentioned the SBRI contract and the terms and conditions that are set out in that. As he mentioned, that is a UK-wide contract. It's not something that we have the ability to negotiate on. So that's part of the information that's included at the bottom of the Simply Do portal page. Please do take a look at that. Please make sure that you're familiar with the terms and conditions of that contract, because by applying for this challenge, you're agreeing that you will be signing that contract. It won't be negotiated after the offer of contract has been made. So please do make sure you read through that and make sure that you're familiar before you go ahead with submitting your application. So I'm going to hand it over to, I believe Boyan's joined us, and hope I pronounced that correctly. He's joined us from Simply Do instead of Josh this morning. Welcome. Lovely
Hello.
to have you on board. Hopefully you can present your screen once I've stopped sharing. Any problems, let me know and I can change the settings to make sure that you can present. Apologies, my mouse keeps disappearing this morning, so having a few challenges with the mouse this morning, so hopefully I'll be able to get back on the right page. If you want to try sharing, hopefully that'll kick me off rather than me trying to find where the button has gone this morning. As I said, it's just one of those days, technically it's not going well. But
Yep,
hopefully you'll be able to run through the Simply Do portal, run through what the process is. And as I said, in the meantime, if anybody's got any questions, please do pop them in the Q&A section. And if you can't access it, you might need to jump out of the call and jump back in. Sometimes not everybody can see it when they first join. So please make sure that you can access that, and we'll be taking questions after we've run through the Simply Do portal. Are you okay to share your screen? Is that okay?
I just want to say my share button is still grayed out. I think you have to stop presenting, Kate.
Let me just try and get on the right screen. As I said, it's one of those days where it's not quite working. There we are. Does that work for you now? If not, hang on, I'll make you a presenter.
Not really. I think I don't have the permissions to share yet. Oh.
There we go. That should work for you now.
There we go. Yep.
Lovely. Team's working its magic this morning. Thank you.
Hopefully I'll be able to share. Just 1 second. Right, could you let me know if you can see my screen?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Amazing. Right, so I'll give a quick demo of the Simply Do platform. As Kate mentioned, my colleague Josh is away. Now, when you follow the Simply Do link, which will be distributed by SBRI, you will then be taken to this landing page on which you will be able to find all of the information that presenters before me have spoken about. So first up, you have all the headings here, the scope, challenge, theme, everything that we've spoken about up until this point will be on this briefing page. Once you scroll down and get to the briefing event section, just I want to let you know that you will be able to find a recording of today's session under this section. So if you've missed anything, if you want to go back to it, you can always do so. Key dates table, you can see it right over here. As Kate mentioned, we will be updating that as soon as possible. Next up, appendices to the challenge. You can find them down here. Any further information, any email about queries. Instructions on what to do next will be down below, as well as the challenge deadline, which I just want to say is different than the one on my screen. That is because I'm currently 1 hour ahead of UK time. I'm in Hungary at the minute, but it should be 12 at the noon on your screen. So that isn't a mistake. Right. Next up, you have the helpful links and docs, an important section. As Kate said, you will find the example SBRI contract here. You'll be able to read through it, and as well as all of the other documents. And you're advised to do so before creating an idea. Once you're happy with the challenge, with all the information that you read through, you can then click this red button here, create your idea. At which point you will be taken to this registration screen. If you haven't got an account for Simply Do, you'll have to create one at this point. Now I've got one, so I'll just pop in my details right here. And then I'll log in. Once you click login, you'll then be taken to what we call the idea creation screen. Right, so this is the idea creation screen. On the left-hand side, you'll be able to see all the different sections that you need to fill out. I'm not going to go through each one. They're pretty self-explanatory. I just want to mention that all the sections marked with a little red star here are mandatory and will need to be filled out. So from section D onwards, you will start addressing the challenge with your unique solution. And yeah, you can also upload files from your computer just by clicking this red button here. You're advised to do so. And then also, if you want to work collaboratively on the challenge, you are able to do so. You should just click just here, add a collaborator, then type in that person's email address and then send them an invitation, which they will receive by email. Also, don't worry if you accidentally close this screen or your tab, because all the information that you write and put here will be stored on the Simply Do platform. You can go to your idea at any point. You don't feel like you need to submit it at one go. That's definitely not the case. And one other thing, yeah, once you get to the bottom, just click the declaration here. Yeah, if you require any further help with any technical questions or problems related to the platform, you can see this little blue button here on the right-hand side. Just click on it, which will then open up a conversation with either myself or another member of staff. And we'll be able to reply and help you out. So that's pretty much everything that you need to know about the platform. I will stay on the call till the end. If you have any other questions, feel free to ask me. But I will hand back over to Kate now, so she can continue.
Excellent, thank you. As Boyan said, that ability to kind of share your application as well with your potential collaborators is great, and hopefully that helps you to kind of feed in that information, particularly in terms of what roles and individuals are going to take. So we've got a couple of questions in the Q&A section. I've also just recently popped in the link to the Simply Do platform just as a reminder to everybody. So I'm going to start going through the questions, but if anybody has any more, please do pop them in as we go along. So one of the first questions I can see from Reese Roberts, missed the date for project closure, could I advise? So as I said, That's now changed after listening to feedback in terms of the constraints of those timescales. So that's now been moved to Friday, the 5th of January. So that'll be 12 p.m. on Friday, the 5th of January. Appreciate that's not the easiest, and so it does possibly mean working over Christmas on this. But unfortunately, with the kind of funding window that we've got, we couldn't lose too much time the other side, during 2024. So unfortunately, we couldn't push it back any further than that. But hopefully that still does allow you a couple more weeks to work on your applications, and as I said, kind of building those collaborations, which will be key. So I'll just pop that answer in there. So does the lead organisation need to be based in Wales? No, you don't have to be based in Wales. So SBRI as a process is open to organisations across the whole of the UK and the EU as well. So you don't have to be based in Wales. But as we're looking for those benefits to drive that circular economy within Wales, we would ideally like you to see working with Welsh businesses to see how we can influence that supply chain. So potentially, if you do have that in place, you might score more favourably on that basis. But the main thing is that you are working with a public sector collaborator within Wales. So you're testing how your solution can work with the systems in place within the public sector within Wales. So no, you don't have to be based in Wales, but please do demonstrate that you are able to work and collaborate with a public sector organisation within Wales. So moving to the next question, what is the maximum size of a company that can apply, turnover, number of people in the company, and what is classed as a small business? So as Tom said at the beginning, unfortunately, SBRI is a little bit misleading. So whilst it's really beneficial to small businesses because it is 100% funding, so it does enable them to be able to participate in R&D and innovation that they might not be able to if they had to financially kind of match funding, as you often have to do in terms of the grant process. But actually SBRI is open to a business of any size. It's also open to academia, and actually we welcome applications from the third sector as well, as long as you can demonstrate how you're potentially going to bring that solution to market. Then it is open to an organisation of any size across the public sector, the private sector, third sector, and academia as well. Hang on, I'll just go up to the top and hope there's a few more questions. So what % of total project costs can be subcontracted? So this tends to be quite flexible. Ideally, we'd look into be seeing a minimum of 50% being allocated to the lead applicant, so the lead organisation, so hopefully the innovative supplier. But there could be some flexibilities within that. So happy to have further discussions. It depends. The key thing about the project costs is who is going to have kind of the key ownership of the intellectual property at the end of this project. Who is the organisation or individual that's going to commercialise that project? So we'd ideally be looking to see the higher percentage of costs going to whoever is going to bring that solution to market at the end. Oh, sorry, Reese, I misunderstood your question in terms of when should, it wasn't when does the project close, the applications close, it was when do the projects close. So the timeline at the moment is that projects will commence on the 5th of February and projects will be expected to complete by the 29th of November. And then after that, we'll be expecting a final report to be submitted, ideally by the 13th of September. So allowing you a couple of weeks once your project has finished its delivery to be able to bring those results together into a final report that can be submitted to the challenge owners. So hopefully that makes it a little bit clearer on that. So just making sure that I haven't missed any going through these. Bear with me. So, Amy, can the partner be another public sector body or does it need to be a private company? In theory, it could be a public sector body, but again, it comes back to who is going to commercialise this? If you can evidence that as a public sector body, you can bring this solution to market and you identified a process, whilst you might not know all the details of how you're going to do that, if you're able to outline what your process is going to be towards commercialisation, you can provide that confidence that you're able to do that as a public sector body, then yes, that partner can be another public sector body. Mark Ellis, is it permissible to apply for SBRI Challenge funding whilst also applying for Welsh Government Smart Capital Equipment Fund, or would de minimis rules apply here? So SBRI, because it's a contract for R&D, it is not subject to de minimis rules. It's not subject to subsidy control because it's a contract for research and development at a fair market price. As Tom said earlier, when you're doing your applications, that cost should be included at fair market value and not include profit. So that's why it isn't subject to subsidy control. So it wouldn't affect that de minimis limit. The one thing I would say, though, is within the application, there is actually a section within there that asks you to state any of the funding that you are receiving. So if you have applied to other funding but not received your results as yet, or you have had it confirmed, please detail that within the section and please state what is different. So if you were successful in receiving this contract and this funding, what would that enable you to do that you're not currently doing under the funding you've already received? So as public sector bodies, we have to be mindful of good use of public sector funding and making sure that we're not duplicating. So please make sure that you are very clear on where the separation lies in what those deliverables are, because that will come up as key questions. If you have kind of identified funding sources, we'll just need to provide that additional confidence that there is no duplication in deliverables. As we work closely with Welsh Government, but we also work closely with Innovate UK and other funding bodies. So please do be as open and honest as possible, because then it allows us to have that discussion up front rather than kind of having to go through at a later stage. So please just put that within the application and it can be considered. It doesn't prevent you from applying, it just gives us the confidence that we're providing additional value rather than just merely duplicating. So Reese, who are the required collaborators for the call? Is there a minimum amount of organisation to involve? Nope, there isn't a minimum amount, but what we're looking to see is who are you working with? What will their role be in the project? And what benefit do you think that you can have for them? So if you've identified an organisation that you're going to work with, when you're articulating how your solution can help solve these problems, please try and do it in the context of that organisation. So if you're working with an organisation, it's how will that solution benefit them? How will you work with their systems? How will you influence potential future systems as well? Because it's not just about the day-to-day and business as usual. This is about how we can influence further change within the whole systems approach. So not a minimum of amount of organisations, but just be clear on the context and why you're working with that organisation and what benefits you think you can have for them. So Gwyn Williams, will a university be classed as a public sector collaborator? No. So they can be classed as a subcontractor. So if you're involving they're not a public sector collaborator, but actually, if you're looking to influence their kind of systems and their use of circular economy, please detail that within there. But actually, what we consider universities probably more as is a subcontractor, not a public sector organisation. So you can include them, but it's probably a slightly different role to what the public sector collaborator would have. But you're welcome to include them as a subcontractor, as long as you can kind of set out why you're involving them, what their role is, and why their expertise can actually help you in terms of developing your solution. So Tom, can I double check, can an NHS Wales organisation be the lead applicant with an industry collaborator? Potentially yes, but as I said, you've got to be able to demonstrate what your commercial route will be. So as long as you as a organisation can demonstrate that you have the capability and capacity to potentially bring this solution to market, then I shouldn't see that being an issue. But, as I said, you're probably going to score more highly if you have got, that Welsh business and influencing the wider supply chains within Wales is really important. So, you know, we will be looking to see who you're working with, what industry partners you're working with as well. So please, you know, what we don't want to see is an application from a single organisation who's not working with anybody else to develop these solutions. That's not collaborative in nature. It's not kind of joining up the supply chain. So that's not likely to score very highly. But if you can demonstrate that you can bring things to market, then, you know, we're happy to kind of consider more flexible approaches within this SBRI. So I think I've already covered the what percent of total projects cost can be subcontracted. So as lead organisations, as part of your collaborations, it's kind of up to you as collaborators to set out what people's participation is within this role, how much time they're going to allocate, how much time do you need from them to be able to understand the processes, understand how things work, really test your solutions. So it's kind of up to you to set out what that budget split will be. As I said earlier, ideally, we'll be looking for whoever is going to be the end body that commercializes this solution. Ideally, we'd like to see the higher percentage going to that organisation. And I'll just kind of check with Greg if he has any other thoughts. He can be invite him to chip in if needs be. But hopefully that covers that question. So ideally, higher percentage to the lead applicant who can demonstrate how they're going to commercialise and will be ultimately the key owner for the IP that's generated through this project. Just going through more of the questions. So I think I've covered Tom's, I've covered Reese's, covered Jay's. Next one is Catherine Fleet. Who would we be able to go to check project falls in scope before submitting an application? So I think probably the best thing to do with that is to send it to our SBRI Centre of Excellence email. So we've got different members across the team. Some may be potentially supporting the assessment process, but then we will have others who are independent to that, who may be able to offer a little bit more advice. But as I said, feel free to, hopefully that's come up as an email link. Don't know that it has, so let me type it in instead. I will pop the SBRI Centre of Excellence email in there just so you know who to directly contact. I think Boyan covered it in his presentation earlier. So if you've got questions about the Simply Do system, please do use that chat function, the little pop-up box at the bottom of the Simply Do portal. If you've got technical queries, if you've got any other queries related to this specific challenge, then please do send those queries through to the email address I'm just popping down in response to that question. So hopefully you'll all be able to see that. That's the best contact details to kind of go through any queries that you might have. So from Lizzie Thomas, will there be any QRM? Apologies, I'm assuming QRMs is quality something. Lizzie, if you wouldn't mind, just whilst I go through some of the other questions, apologies for being a bit dim. If you can just so I'm making sure I'm answering that question correctly, if you can just pop that in, what that actually stands for, then hopefully then I'll be able to make sure that I'm answering that one correctly. So in terms of what percentage of project costs can be applied to overheads, that is all within. So there's some application guidance on the Simply Do portal, and that will cover what costs can be included within your challenge application, and that will also cover percentage in terms of overhead. So please do take a look at the guidance as part of that, and it will outline all of that details for you. So please do have a quick look at that. So does it have to be a Welsh state enterprise? Is there an opportunity to incorporate within Wales? So I'm guessing that means, does it have to be a Welsh? Hopefully I'm understanding that question correctly, but if not, please do expand on that within a reply to the questions. So does it have to, I'm assuming that means, does it have to be a Welsh lead business? In that case, no, I think I've covered that. Is there an opportunity to incorporate in Wales? I don't know whether or not that means, kind of expanding your businesses to Wales. Please do add some further context if I'm not answering that correctly. But yes, certainly we'd welcome businesses from outside of Wales looking at opportunities to expand their delivery and service within Wales, but hopefully that covers some of it. If there is anything I haven't answered particularly clearly, which I'm noting the last few questions haven't been the clearest, please do pop an email through to that SBRI Centre of Excellence email address, and hopefully I can understand a bit more context in terms of what you're asking, provide some firmer answers, and we can kind of share those answers with everybody so that everybody's able to kind of see what the responses are to that. So Robert's question, do you need to provide an external consultation on effectiveness and external audit of potential savings, etc., or is evaluation provided by SBRI? You don't have to have an external consultation. So if you as a business are able to articulate evidence and evaluate how your solution has worked, then we're happy for you to kind of set that out. You know, it's for you to be able to kind of understand, and it's part of the process that we'll go through when projects start. So as part of the project initiation, we'll be looking to see what measures you've considered in terms of how are you going to measure and evidence the effectiveness of your solution. So we'll be looking to be led by you in terms of what you think needs to be measured, in terms of how can you evidence that it's sustainable, cost effective, all those sorts of things. So we're not going to be too prescriptive. You know, we don't know what those solutions are going to be, so we can't necessarily set out kind of specifics in terms of what you have to evaluate. Hopefully that's a role that you as innovative suppliers are able to kind of set out what you think will evidence that. If you want to bring on subcontractors to provide independent external evaluation of your solution, then you're welcome to do so. It all helps kind of add to that robustness, but there's not a specific requirement to do so. So as a team, as the SBRI team, we can provide some benefits templates, so some kind of standard things that we'd look at as part of evaluation, part of understanding the impacts and the benefits. But we're not going to be too prescriptive. You know, this is a unique challenge in terms of how it's going to be delivered. So the measures have to be appropriate to the solution that you're putting forward. So be very much led by you and what you set out to measure at the start of your projects. Thank you, Greg, for explaining quality risk management. Thank you. So yes, there's a section on the application form to address risks and mitigations. And that's a key part of the applications that sometimes we don't get as thorough, I suppose, especially put a thorough response as we'd like to see. You know, we want to provide confidence, and especially in some of these that might kind of be kind of, you know, if you're demonstrating a solution, so there's going to be some potentially health and safety risks as well as part of this, especially when it comes to kind of reuse of, say for a health example, you're using potentially, you're looking at products that are potentially at this current time classed as clinical waste. There are specific risks that kind of sit behind that. So we're really looking for you to consider, you know, how you're going to ensure the safety, not only of your team, but the people that you're going to work with as well. So please make sure that you give sufficient consideration to that section in terms of risks and mitigation, and please make sure that they're specific to this challenge and this solution. So sometimes what we see in the past are quite generic risk lists. What we're really looking to see is that you've considered the specific risks in relation to this particular solution and challenge. So hopefully that answers that question. So can you give some examples of the kind of projects that would fall into phase 2 and how the SBRI phases map to TRL levels? So we don't strictly kind of kind of tie the SBRI phases to TRL levels, but as a kind of a rough indicator. So feasibility, potentially looking at TRL levels, probably 1 to 3, potentially 1 to 4. So we're looking for potentially demonstration of things that are kind of a minimum of 4 or 5 TRL level upwards, but we're not kind of strict on that. You know, we're looking to see things that are innovative, but you do need to be able to demonstrate. So that is that kind of what we're not looking for is a feasibility report. So just going through what the SBRI phases are. So traditionally, SBRIs run as phase 1, which is feasibility. So that's kind of like early investigation, very early development of solutions, and potentially things like desktop studies and things like that. That's not what we're looking for in this case. What we're looking to do is start right at phase 2. So we're looking for you to be able to demonstrate, prototype, so be able to provide that real world testing of how your solution can work in practice. So not just the feasibility theory, it's the practical application and demonstrating that things can actually have the benefits that you set out to do. Because SBRI is about pre-commercial procurement, what we're not looking for is solutions that are already market ready, where you're not proposing any new innovations. So if you're using a solution that works for a different sector and you're looking to apply it to a new sector, so therefore you're able to demonstrate that there's sufficient research, development and innovation required as part of that, we can consider that. But what we're not looking for is just a plug and play, if that makes sense. You know, if you can buy it off the shelf now and implement it very easily, then really, why isn't the public sector doing that already? So this is about, you know, identifying what needs to be developed further within your solution. Where does the innovation lie? And what are the research and development activities that you're going to undertake? So hopefully that explains the phases. Sorry, the one bit that I have missed is the phase 3 scale and spread. And I suppose that kind of connects to what I've just said in terms of you've already got a solution that you've kind of tested in particular areas. It's near to market, but you're looking to kind of further evidence how this can be delivered potentially on a bigger, broader scale, or with different sectors or with different demographics. That's where we're looking at the scale and spread. So you're looking to demonstrate the ability for your solution to scale and spread to provide wider benefits across Wales. I'll just go back to the questions. As I said, if there's anything that's not particularly clear, please do drop me an email afterwards and I'll be happy to kind of go through that in more detail. Hugh Watkins, are we able to facilitate access to key contacts within the public sector? Feel free to contact us, drop us your details in an email, and potentially, you know, we do have broader networks, so we can potentially share information. What we can't necessarily do, we can't set up those collaborations for you, if that makes sense. You know, we do have to be relatively independent, but we do have broad networks and we do have other communication channels that we can kind of hopefully share, so that we're kind of making sure that information, those networks are available to everybody so that it's a fair, open and transparent process. But if you are kind of struggling, just let us know and we can hopefully make some introductions through our networks, even if we kind of can't help support you developing those collaborations. Means we have to kind of stay relatively independent on this. So I believe that's hopefully all the questions to some extent answered. As I said, if I've not been particularly clear on those questions, apologies, Catherine. I put my response in terms of my email address to the wrong person and I missed your question. So who would be, oh no, that is the right question. So that was about the questions about scope. So hopefully that does answer that. I'm not seeing any more questions coming through at this moment. If there's any that I've missed, please just pop them in again because they'll jump to the top of the queue and I'll be able to see those as a new post. So I'll leave it a couple of minutes just in case anybody does have any further questions. As I said, if you want to kind of contact us through the SBRI email, that will be within the Q&As, or it'll be on the Simply Do website as well and on the SBRI website as well. So hopefully there's lots of different places that you can find that contact detail and get in touch. Sorry, Llewellyn, I did see your, can you drop me that one in an email? Because I'm not 100% sure that I'm understanding. I'm guessing you mean by TFW Transport for Wales. So does it have, can it be an organisation such as Transport for Wales? Yes, certainly we can consider that as well. Hopefully that example, yeah, thank you. I did get TFW was for Transport for Wales. So yeah, that could be a kind of, at the end of the day, it's about how can you make life better for citizens within Wales, and Transport for Wales is a key part of that as well. So as long as you're able to demonstrate the context, how you're kind of working towards that circular economy approach and how you can set out those benefits, then yeah, certainly happy to consider Transport for Wales as a local partner, as long as I said, as long as you can kind of articulate what that role will be and potentially how it can have those wider benefits for our communities across Wales, and as I've said earlier, our supply chains within Wales as well. Fab. So hopefully that did answer that question. As I said, anything I've not been particularly clear on, please do pop us an email. I can see your hands up, but I'm not able to take people. I'm not able to take the attendees off mute and mute their mics or their cameras. So if you do have a question, can you please just pop it in the Q&A so that we can kind of make sure that we're kind of fairly addressing everybody's questions within that. Again, I'll pop that email in there in response to Llewellyn's question. So I'll give it a couple of minutes. I did see a hand up, so I'll give you a couple of minutes just to pop your question. Hopefully you can cover that within the Q&A. If it's broader than the Q&A bit allows, please, as I said, drop me an email and hopefully I'll be able to cover it off that way. So I'll give it a few more minutes. In the meantime, I'd like to thank the presenters for attending today and providing their the context in terms of SBRI on a UK level and in particular innovation on a Welsh level. But I will allow another moment or two just for people to pop a few more questions in. As I said, anything I've missed, please do get in contact after the event via the email that I've shared in the Q&A. As mentioned earlier, a recording of this session will be uploaded to the Simply Do portal, so please feel free to share that with other interested parties who weren't able to join the call today. We're hoping for kind of a strong level of response to this call. We've had quite a lot of people join us today as part of this briefing event, which is great to see. So hopefully that's an indication of the level of interest in this challenge, and hopefully the applicability of this challenge in supporting that circular economy approach. We just have another. So project start date and end date. I will pop this in the Q&A section just so you've all got easier access to it. But as I said, it's a very recent change that we've made in terms of the start and end dates, which is why those updated dates aren't Simply Do as yet. But we will be changing those on the Simply Do platform, so you'll be able to kind of access those. So the projects will be expected to commence at the start of February 2024 and expected to complete their demonstration on the 29th of November, and then allowing a couple of weeks after that to formulate your final report and submit that to the project board. But I'll just pop that in the Q&A and hopefully you will all be able to see that. But as I said, it will be up on the Simply Do platform, and we'll be changing the closing date on that system as well, just to make sure that we're giving you that a little bit of additional time. So as a reminder, the closing date will now be Friday, the 5th of January, 2024. Apologies for making you work over Christmas, but hopefully it does give you a little bit of extra time to form your collaborations. As a reminder, the deadline for submission will be 12 p.m. on that day. As I've said on the calls, please don't leave it to the very last moment to submit your application. If there are any technical difficulties that you kind of notify us of just before that closing time or just after, I'm afraid there's very little we can do to support you at that time. The closing time is the closing time. So please, don't leave it to the very last minute. Submit as early as you can on that day. If you do have any technical problems, as I said, contact the Simply Do team. They're extremely helpful, and I'm sure they'll be able to help with any issues that you do have, any questions relating to challenge. When will the final report be due? Again, I'll just pop that in the chat. So that will be 13th of December 2024. So these are all ideal timelines. They're kind of what we currently have agreed. As always, things can be subject to change. So for example, assessment process takes longer, then perhaps the project start date may be delayed slightly. We're not seeing that happening. We've allowed relatively sufficient time between each stage to commence at the beginning of February, but dates can change, things can happen, but that's the dates that we're aiming for. So in terms of your readiness as an applicant to start within that time frame, there are questions that cover that within the application. So please make sure that you're working towards commencing on that date as stated. But as I said, things can change, but we're not intending for them to do so at this point. Hopefully that's all the questions answered. Thanks very much again for your time and for joining this call this morning and for kind of showing such a keen interest in this particular challenge. As I said, the dates will be updated on the Simply Do platform. And in closing, I wish you all the best with your applications. And if you do have any questions, I can see there's just something else. Just thank you, and thank you for posing your questions. Very helpful reminder in terms of the date, so thank you once again. But I think we're going to draw it to a close there if I haven't got any kind of last minute queries popping through. But thanks again, and best of luck with your submissions. Thank you all.